Hello, everyone, and welcome to Omni Talk Retail's Shop Talk Must-See Tech LinkedIn Live session. Chris, we have been doing quite a lot of promotion to get ready for Shop Talk over the course of the past few weeks.
Well put, Ed. Well put.
Yes. You've been outside in negative temperatures talking about all the events and opportunities at Shop Talk. I've done my best and yet still incredibly terrible acting impressions. And as a result, we've been getting a ton of comments from all of you, from our followers, reaching out, asking us what we recommend they find out about, what technology they look at while they're there, and just kind of what to put on their list for the show. So, Chris.
Yes.
To simplify things for our Omni Talk fans, to go above and beyond for everybody, we brought together in one digestible podcast session partners that we think you should have on your list, right?
That's right, Ann. Yes, we're going to take everyone watching and listening later through a series of interviews with the folks we believe are the quote-unquote must-see technology providers at next week's Shop Talk. So you can have all the info you need to plan your booth stops, your meetups, your sessions, and more. So with that, Ann, I think let's get to it. Let's get to the first interview and let's get this party started.
All right. Joining us now is Placer.AI CEO, Vinod Ramachandran. Vinod, it's so great to have you. Welcome to Omni Talk.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here, Ann and Chris. Thank you for having me.
Yes, awesome. Well, let's give the audience a quick background. This is your first time on Omni Talk. So let's give them a background on Placer.AI and what you and your team do.
Absolutely. So we started Placer.AI about a couple of years ago. At Placer.AI, we are basically building the only AI platform for retailers and brands that they will ever need. So we are building a set of specialized AI agents, each one catering to a different aspect of the retailer's operations. So think of it as a team of experts, each one handling different parts of your business from sales to marketing to data analysis, but except that they're all powered with AI. So for example, our AI sales agent sits on the merchant's website and it tries to recreate the personalized experience that you would get if you walked into a brick and mortar store and bringing it to the online world so that it can boost their conversion rates and sales. Similarly, our AI content marketer is like a member of the marketing team that can instantly create landing pages in minutes that could be used for paid campaigns or SEO. Today, those things would take multiple weeks for the team to do, whereas now we can do these things in minutes. So it's just the beginning of the journey. We are continuously building more AI agents for other aspects of the business. So that's the path that we are on.
Well, and Vinod, what's your background? Like, how did you decide that this was the problem that you were going to tackle? And so boldly, I might add, like all the AI that any company could ever need.
So a big part of my career I spent at Google, building some of the most foundational products, both consumer-facing and advertising products. So my co-founder and I originally built the Chrome mobile browser, which is kind of the foundation of online shopping today, right? And then I.
This is why I asked the question. This is why I asked, Vinod.
Nice.
So I spent a long time also building many ads products and shopping products at Google. So I've been on the other side where retailers and brands are spending a lot of money on these platforms on ads. And it's very clear, especially those that don't have the deep pockets are kind of struggling to stay afloat, right? And so to me, when the AI revolution came, it became pretty clear there's a huge opportunity to build something that can cater to brands and retailers of all sizes. And so it was kind of an obvious choice at that point.
God, I love this job, Ed. I love this job. We're talking to the guy that invented the Google Chrome browser. This is great.
Yeah.
All right, Vinod. So you're going to be in this startup pitch competition too, right? And you get like 5 minutes or something, 3 minutes to pitch what you do, what the company does. And you've already kind of done that to some degree, but we're going to give you a little more time here because what Ann and I want to know and what our audience, I think, is wanting to know too, is of all the things that you can do, what capabilities on your platform do you think are going to resonate the most with the retailers or the CPG brands at Shoptalk?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are three primary capabilities in our platform that they can use to drive tangible results today. So the first one that we talked about is the AI sales agent, right? Which today, within minutes, any brand would be able to integrate this on their site, and they would be able to boost their conversion rates like almost instantly. And so we built this product. We launched this like more than a year ago, and it's doing incredibly well. So that's number one that can drive immediate impact. The second thing is any marketing team at any retailer or CPG today is spending a lot of time building content that ranks well on traditional search engines, on AI search engines for their paid campaigns, and so on and so forth. We have made that process super simple by giving them an AI employee called the AI content marketer, where you can go and spin up hundreds of landing pages within minutes. And that could instantly start driving net new traffic for you. It could start ranking in these AI search engines as your authoritative voice about your products. That's another one that they can immediately use. And the third one, and our newest launch, is called an AI data scientist, which is, and again, an employee of the merchant's organization that can translate complex data into actionable insights. On Slack, you can go and chat with this AI data scientist and ask about any product or business metrics related questions, and you will get those answers instantly. So instead of you going and figuring out dashboards and writing SQL queries and whatnot, you can now ask about your product and business performance, just like you would ask any other human employee, and get those answers instantly. So these are three things that brands today can adopt and really start shifting their business towards this AI era, right? It's almost like making your business AI ready, and you need to take it in steps. But how do you find the products that drive immediate impact? And those are the three that we offer today.
So Vinod, because you used the term like it acts as your employee, is what you're talking about agentic AI, or tell our audience about that. Like, what is that concept and how does that fit in here?
Yeah, exactly. So we are trying to recreate, like take the content marketer as an example, right? We are trying to recreate this experience where today a content marketer is using multiple sources of data to determine what type of content I should generate and which ones are going to perform well on my SEO or for paid campaigns. Can I continuously optimize these pages? How frequently should I come and refresh these pages, and so on and so forth? What we have done is truly utilize maximum possible amount of sources to automate this process, so that the content marketer today can think about more strategic initiatives as opposed to doing the grunt work of actually producing this type of content. So to give you an example, our agents act together. They collaborate with each other. The AI content marketer looks at all the conversations that users are having with the brand, picks out topics that are important, and automatically generates landing pages that could immediately be hosted on their domain for SEO purposes, so that if those users or any other user is searching for a similar thing on Google or ChatGPT or Perplexity, you have an opportunity now to rank, right? And so this is completely automated process. With zero touch, we could produce a lot of content for you that is your authoritative voice about your product category, that when users are looking for in meta search engines, they will be able to find those. So,
it's so cool, Vinod. I was just thinking, like, we just heard a few weeks ago on our Fast Five about like how Walmart's built something like this internally for their own teams called Wally to start gathering this data in the way that you're talking about. You have to, as a brand not named Walmart or Amazon or any of these key players, these are the types of things that you have to be investing in and be ready for if you're going to win, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. I think you're spot on. So that is the key aspect. There are very few businesses, very few retailers who have the resources to take advantage of new technology. I've been working in tech for like 20 plus years. We have all seen a few technology shifts, but nothing as big as what the impact that AI is going to have on e-commerce. But unfortunately, not every brand or retailer have the resources to completely leverage the technology to their advantage. And that's exactly what we are trying to do, is like, hey, we will be your partner, and we're building out this platform that if you start utilizing it, you don't have to fall behind the largest retailers, right? Like, you have an opportunity to compete well, and that's exactly what we're doing.
And so, Vinod, going back to the whole AI and what's the problem that you solve, the problem that you're solving in this use case that you're giving is the SEO issue, right? Like that you can help the retailers rank higher in SEO and therefore drive more traffic to their site. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we are solving basically three problems. Each one, as I said, each agent is solving a different problem that's all burning for the retailer. The first one, the AI sales agent, is about how do I help increase your online conversion rates for users who are already landing on your site? As you know, the customer experience, consumer experience, online shopping has been stagnant for many years, right? Many people have tried to kind of recreate this experience of like this personalized guidance in store and bringing it online. With AI, we're now able to do that. So this is all about how do I increase your conversion rates for users who are already landing on your site? The second, the content marketer, is about how do I drive net new traffic to your store, right? So by creating the right set of content that performs well for SEO or for paid campaigns, you're now able to drive net new traffic. And then the data scientist is about how do I improve decision-making and productivity in the retailer's organization by bringing the access to information to their fingertips. So instead of like, imagine if you're an executive at a retailer and you're thinking about like, hey, how is my site performing, or how is my product margins looking? Today you'll have to go and like dig through multiple dashboards to kind of get understanding. What if somebody was sitting next to you all the time who can answer any of these questions the moment it comes to your mind? If that happens, then your decision making improves substantially. So it's all about improving that decision making and efficiency of the team. So that's what the data scientist is doing. So each one of these is important problem, right? I mean, we all know that retailers, many of them are, the number of people in the organization is shrinking, right? Like, many of them are kind of like struggling. So how can new technology actually help them compete better? And that's why, we are building this platform.
Well, Vinod, I know, you've outlined these three categories where Big Sur AI is already able to have retailers use these agents to help them and their online business. What are the next things you think that are the most kind of critical components that are missing from the online shopping experience that you feel like you're going to prioritize as your organization to help provide to the retailer so they can help create an even online and offline experience, or get as close to that as they can for their customers?
Yeah, I can talk about this for hours, but really, I think first on the consumer experience side. So first of all, AI is going to, as I said, impact every part of a retailer's business, right? Both sort of like consumer facing as well as the back office stuff. But as far as the consumer facing experiences are concerned, our platform is not just about like, recreating this in-store experience and bringing it online, but how could you actually redefine the overall online shopping experience? So for example, I think within, some time period, maybe a year or so, one could get to an experience where anytime you land on a merchant's website, every pixel on the screen is being generated and personalized for you.
Yeah,
100%. That's the true power of hyper personalization, which is now possible with all the real-time analytics that is made possible with AI, right? And so that, I think, in the near term, it's quite possible that anytime you go to a website, that everything on that website is being generated and personalized for you. This notion of having this old website, which is being a set of static pages, will go away and kind of create like everyone gets their own version of the site and their own version of interaction with the brand. So I think that certainly is within striking distance and will happen. Brands that embrace AI are going to demonstrate this and show impact. But there is a lot more, right? When I talk to customers, there are interesting problems that they bring to the table, like certainly inventory planning and forecasting is a major area of opportunity. We are not tackling that yet, but we certainly want to. But then there is also more interesting problems like how can I design my next generation products using AI? So if you're an apparel brand thinking about like what materials I should order for my next season, what design should I produce for my next season, can AI help them produce more thoughtful recommendations and suggestions that could perhaps move the needle for their business? Those are all interesting areas that we certainly want to get in at some point. But most of our focus today is all about sales, marketing, and the sort of the consumer-facing aspect of it, where there is still a lot of opportunity.
And it goes back to what Ann and I've been saying for a while now, that the rise of AI is going to change the user interfaces by which we shop e-commerce particularly. What we're used to is not going to be how we shop now is not going to be the way we're shopping, 3-5 years from now, based on what you're saying. The other point I love too is the data science piece, that you talked about too, Vinod. Like, that's a real gap for, 99% of retailers. Like 99% of retailers don't have a data science arm stood up to the degree that they probably need to compete with the big guys. And so that's a really interesting aspect of what you're doing too. All right, well, let's get you out of here on this. So we've been asking everybody. We got to ask you too. What's your favorite thing about Shoptalk, or what are you most excited to do while you're out there?
Great question. So this is my third year in a row attending Shoptalk. Very excited. The thing that I love the most about it is the vibe and the energy of the people, right? Like, I think it's one of those very few conferences where people who are truly passionate about commerce, retail, e-commerce are all congregating with each other, and you have an opportunity to have like face-to-face conversations. There is nothing that, that can beat that. In fact, I would say for the last 2 years in a row that I've attended, a single event that has been most productive for us from like product input, feedback, customer acquisition, etc. Shoptalk has been like the best forum for us. So really eagerly looking forward to it. And obviously, as you referred to earlier, we are also going to be presenting at a session at this year's Shoptalk. So really excited about the potential.
Well, yeah. So if people want to get in touch with you while you're out there or catch that session, like when is it, and like what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. Our session is on Tuesday, March 25th at 4:05 p.m. So if you want to hear about us and other innovative companies in this space, definitely come attend that session. We certainly would love to meet everybody who's interested to talk about, our products, or in general, how AI can influence retail. So you can also reach out to us at my email, which is Vinod@Bigser.ai. It's Vinod@Bigser.ai. We'll be very happy to meet. And we also have a few dinners and happy hours planned. So we can make this a lot more fun.
Well, can't wait to see you there, Vinod. So joining us now is Lucky's CEO, Sneh Parmar. Sneh, welcome back to Omni Talk.
Thanks, Chris and Anna, for having me.
Yeah. All right. Let's start with this. Let's give the audience a reminder about what Lucky does and why you guys started the company, because that's an interesting story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Happy to walk you guys through a little bit of that. To kick off, what Lucky is, like, we're a omnichannel data company. So what we do is we partner with major retailers, think Sephora, Ulta, Nordstrom, etc. We integrate into their inventory systems and their attribution systems. We basically ingest that data, standardize it, clean it, and then share it back with brands. So what brands get out of it is a couple things. They're able to showcase real-time availability to their customers, track when customers are shopping from brand.com to retailer.com. And if a brand is running their own retail marketing, they can finally get attribution on those campaigns to see which campaigns work. So we started this company actually because, like, me and my co-founder, we were previously in the brand space. So we were helping brands launch on like Shopify, online, e-commerce, you name it. We saw their growth, saw the data they were getting, and then we saw like this change of brands going to retail earlier in their life cycle, especially post-pandemic. But the challenge was it's not really that data driven. Like, you're really beholden to the sales data that a retailer gives you, and that's about it. So our thesis was we could go partner with these major retailers, show them that, hey, if you let us share this data through our pipelines, because we're a tech company, and we know exactly how to do this in a very, very easy, low lift way for both sides, then it actually drives more value and revenue to the retailer themselves. And brands are super happy because then they're finally getting data that they never got before, and they're able to showcase increased retail velocity. So we look at ourselves like a one-liner is like, hey, Lucky's here to help you increase retail sales. That's kind of what we do, and we have a couple ways we do that.
Well, Sneh, you just had a massive announcement with Ulta, one of my favorite retailers. Can you break this down even further for us? Like, tell us a little bit about what you're helping Ulta do, and like who some of the other clients are that you're working with, and maybe just kind of walk us through kind of how this works between brand, retailer, and Lucky.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and thanks so much. Yeah, Ulta was a retailer we were working, trying to get for a long time. We were fortunate that we finally got them, showed them enough value that they were like, hey, like let's move forward with this partnership.
Let's dance. Yeah.
You and everybody else, man. I mean, this is a great get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, the way we work between like us, the retailer, and the brand, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good question. Is so what we do with like Ulta, for example, is we obviously ingest store level inventory data from them, and we have a direct link into their attribution and affiliate systems. So we take that data and then we share it back with the brands through products that we sell to them. So as a brand, you're able to utilize Lucky for three distinct reasons. So one is an inventory-driven store locator. So imagine like you going to a brand's website and you go into their store locator. It's just typically like right now, it's just a static store name, address, and phone number. Let's be real, no one's actually calling the store, but hey, is this product available or not?
Yeah.
We're able to showcase in real time every product and SKU available with quantity available right now. So that's amazing for a consumer perspective. And if they actually end up buying from like, let's say Ulta.com through our experience, then the brand actually knows that data and they can see the entire cart. On top of that, we have like a PDP experience. So if you're on a product page, you can also showcase, hey, find it near you right now. But it's filters based just off that product, which has been really, really helpful. And we've seen a lot of engagement and like honestly increased sales revenue for the retailer and the brand through that. And then the last piece that we offer to brands is a retail marketing attribution tool. So imagine like you're a brand running your own marketing campaigns on like, let's say Instagram, for example, like to, hey, go buy my product at Ulta. Right now, you're only getting click data on those ads. You're not able to actually see if someone went to Ulta.com and bought a product. We can actually do that through our end-to-end solution. So that's kind of what we offer to these brands. And then obviously the retailers are super happy because we're helping them drive more foot traffic and sales. Like everything is about how can we drive retail growth and scale. And that's kind of why like all these retailers align really well with us, including Ulta and then a few other players like include like Sephora, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, even Best Buy, as we look at category expansion. So it's been beneficial to both sides, and we like to think of it as a win-win situation. So a lot of people like working with us.
Yeah, 1+1 really equals 3 in what you guys are trying to do. And the thing I love about it most, it's a great omni-channel solution that connects the brands to the retailers in a new way in so many levels, from an inventory standpoint, from a data perspective too. Yeah. What do you anticipate is the number one challenge that the brands are facing right now that you think they're going to come and approach you and want to talk to you about at Shoptalk?
Yeah, and I think it changes, right? Like by every Shoptalk. I think
does it? Okay.
New problem like everyone's talking about. I think this year, I mean, at least what we've seen in like the demographic of customers and brands and partners and everyone that we work with, I think one of the biggest challenges that we see these brands having or these people having is how to like optimize their retail marketing or like retail marketing spend. And I think that's something that like we've kind of gotten ahead of. We've been iterating with our brands and retail partners for the last like 6 to 10 months on this product. That's something that we've seen grown in demand more and more every single time we talk to a brand, especially as we go more up market. Like we're starting to like knock down some enterprise brand clients. So because of that, we're starting to see that become a larger and larger challenge. And we're happy to say that we have a solution to that problem. But at the end of the day, I think everyone's wondering like, hey, how can I grow retail sales, right? It's a finite space. Everyone's trying to fight for the prime real estate in the stores. So you have to continue showing performance and velocity. Otherwise you're no longer there. So like, I think every brand or customer wants an edge. And we're hoping that our platform provides that.
Yeah, that's a great point, though. It's good to keep in mind. Like, you know, if you're a startup startup brand or just trying to get shelf space, like you still got to figure out how to maximize that advertising ROI. So I'm not surprised that that's something that you're focused on with them. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and to be able to like attribute those sales, especially with the increase of people, you know, discovering products online and then being able to actually say like, yes, this drove me into this store or this added this to my basket and here are the results. It makes those investments easier on the executive teams running those campaigns, I imagine.
Absolutely. And what we've seen is like, I mean, everyone has their preferred method of buying, right? But in beauty, which is a category that we're very familiar with and have very, very well dived into, like people love shopping at Ulta and Sephora. Like they go to brands' websites to learn about their products and like, hey, educate themselves, see like, let's say the UGC content, reviews, all that. But when the consumer's like, hey, I want to go buy this product, they're like, well, my loyalty points at Sephora and Ulta are worth way more than trying to buy it with the brand. So like they're going to go to those stores anyways, because they also probably like, hey, I have 3 other things I need to buy. So let me just go there. So like we've seen like, especially in beauty, brands really liking the attribution and being able to showcase like, hey, we drove that sale. Because then they can go to the retail partner and be like, hey, like, we actually are driving you a lot of revenue directly from us.
Yeah.
Because that's the preferred method of buying in that category.
The other point too, it's a validation point for those brands, that you should have confidence as the consumer that they are legitimate and doing well and that you want to buy them, right? Because you can see them available and the inventory available at any retailer that you particularly happen to like as a consumer. Is that right, Sneh?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I hit the nail on the head, Chris.
Yeah, well, and I think that's going to change too. Like we've talked about too, one of the tracks at Shoptalk is solely focused on changing how we're changing our search behaviors. And so that attribution is going to become even more important as we start to use ChatGPT to search for things, or we're using Google Lens to search for things, like being able to identify, like, I have loyalty program points at this retailer, so I'm going to go there over another one, but then also seeing like this is also the closest place that I could go get it. So when I have that intent mindset, I can execute on it right away.
No, absolutely.
Okay, well, Sneh, let's get you out of here on our favorite question. Sneh, what is your favorite thing about Shoptalk?
There's so many. I mean, I think Shoptalk is one of our probably, if not one of our like top 3 favorite conferences of the year.
Why is it? Why is that?
Yeah, I know that's a good question. If I had to put it into one word, I think the serendipity of the conference. So like we've always found we always go to conferences like with an agenda, right? Like, hey, these are the people we need to meet. These are these things, events we need to do. These are the things we need to get done. But what we found is like the time when we don't have anything to plan on our schedule, or like either walking the show floor or just like out at the little cafeteria area or just like talking or meeting people, that's when we actually meet the best people for us as a business. Like that's when we meet someone like, hey, we're like, wow, this is the enterprise brand we've been trying to get in front of for like 6 months. We just met them in person. And this is like their CMO that we're talking to, and they love us. So I think like that, like serendipity of just like running into someone that you never know could be super valuable, or who they're connected with, or what relationships they have. I think that's like our favorite piece about Shoptalk. It's like like everyone there is valuable, and like you just got to find out how.
That's a perfect answer, Sneh. I love it. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us. And before we let you go, if people want to have those either serendipitous connections with you, or they want to actually put it on their agendas, what's the best way for the people to connect with you at Shoptalk next week?
Yeah, so I mean, they can shoot me an email. I think that's probably always easiest to schedule some time, which is like just Sneh, like SNEH @luckylabs.io. So just shoot me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn, just Sneh Parmar on LinkedIn, and then just shoot me a message. I'm pretty accessible on both channels. So
amazing. Thank you so much, Sneh.
Thanks, Sneh.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Hello, everyone. We're back again, and this time we're going to introduce Lily AI's CEO and co-founder, Purva Gupta. Purva, welcome to Omni Talk.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with this. This is kind of becoming the theme of this webinar, actually, is let's start with the problem you're trying to solve when you created Lily AI, and what the product actually does for retailers and brands as a result of that.
Absolutely. So Lily AI bridges the gap between merchant speak and consumer speak in retail. So simple example, a merchant will describe a product as midnight French terry at leisure.
I love this already.
Is going to say navy blue hoodie.
Yeah.
And they're not going to have a good experience most likely, because those are the words there's just a gap in that language. And now, Chris, we actually live in a world where it's not just about the gap between merchant speak or marketer speak and consumer speak. You also have the machine speak now. Like, what about the machines?
Right.
So so that's the gap that we're bridging between the merchant, marketer, machine, and the consumer, where it's just so much more important now to understand what the consumer cares about and optimize for all these different channels. And so the way that I would now describe Lily is we're a company that's doing product content optimization for all these different channels and supercharging all different parts of your retail stack.
You're speaking my language as a former merchant. I can remember those days,
know.
100%, where like I'd be like, guys, you can't call that on this. You can't use that language on the site. You got to put something that people can actually search and understand as consumers. But how would you say how would you say Lily AI differentiates itself from the competition? Because, there are a number of companies in this space that, are, trying to solve the same problems that you just described. But how do you differentiate yourself?
Absolutely. So number one, I'll say we've been the OG in this space, and so
The OG.
we've not added AI to our name in the last 2 years. We've been that company for a decade. And
True that. Yes.
so we understood this very early on that your AI is as good as your training data. And so Lily today has the largest clean proprietary training data set in the world for a decade. We've been creating our own clean training data. And of course, back then it was like this company is crazy. Why are they doing this? And now it suddenly is making sense to everybody. And it's that advantage, that just natural advantage that we have because we have the really good clean training data. And the overall bigger point here is accuracy is really, really important here when you talk about product content. So that's number one. Accuracy is really important, and Lily absolutely tops that game. And that's also demonstrated by all the largest brands and retailers that we work with and have been working with for a while, not just in the last 2 years. So that's number one. Number two is relevance is really important. That natural language of the consumer is constantly changing, and it's different on different platforms. What you say on Google,
Mm.
Meta, what you do on a marketplace, what you
Mhm.
do on Amazon, what you do on the own e-commerce website, it's different everywhere, and it needs to be optimized like that for that channel. And so that relevance is really important. So what Lily does is that we're listening to all this external signal from everywhere, all the way from, literally your Google Ads console. We're looking at all the search terms and extracting keywords out of that and getting that additional signal to your first party data that we're getting from brands and retailers to say, here's our data, now look at this and get the signal. And so relevance of what matters to the consumer is so much more important today to understand than what has happened in e-commerce experiences over the years. And so relevance is the big muscle that Lily has built
Mhm.
over the years, and that differentiates us from not just the accuracy of what we are producing in terms of content, but also the relevance of that content and optimization for all different channels.
You gave a few examples, but I mean, what is it that your clients are really coming to you to accomplish? Like, what's top of mind for them when they're using Lily? And then maybe if you can talk about a little bit too about like where's a good place for them to start?
The number one thing that consumers are excited about with Lily AI is our consumer first nature, right? So we're talking about natural language synchronization, understanding the
Okay.
words that consumers care about. It's
Hmm.
real-time search intelligence. It's the continuous feedback loop. So what you're hearing, the signal that you're getting, you're putting that back on the catalog and making sure that that feedback loop is closed so that the consumer has a good experience. And then that shows up in the
Yes.
incremental revenue that we're generating, right? So macro micro trends. I mean, I'll use the very sort of the very popular trends like quiet luxury, Barbie core, or Wicked, or whatever it is that is going on. You got to optimize for all of that, and it needs to
Right.
go on your catalog, and it cannot be done manually anymore. Look, it's been done manually for all these years, but that's where you're leaving a lot of money on the table. It cannot be that. It needs to be optimized. And this is where you can start listening to these trends 6 months before they become mainstream. And everybody's like, hey, do we have that in our catalog? It's too late. Like you
Yeah.
need to be earlier on that trend curve versus when it's peaking or on its way down. And so, those macro micro trends about what the consumer cares about is really, really important. So the number one thing I'll say is the whole consumer first nature of what we do at Lily, where everything that we're building, we're not an AI company that's building cool AI stuff. AI is an enabler. It has been over the years. We're solving the core problems that these brands and retailers care about, which is about how to bring what the consumer cares about at the center of the experience. Everybody talks about that. We enable that for them, right? So that's number one. Number two is data. In this new world that we live in now, everybody understands your AI is as good as your data. And so, like I said, Lilly has the largest clean training data set in the world. And that lends to the accuracy that we are able to deliver. This is, a lot of proprietary data that we have that you just cannot get unless you just start doing this today with tremendous amount of capital that'll need to be invested to do this.
Purva, I think it's really important to call out too that this is not just something that the major retailers out there are going to be investing in and doing. You work with a variety of retailers and you have this 10 years of history in and database that you are able to apply to a variety of business sizes. That's right.
We're talking about, the largest brands and retailers to anybody that is doing 20, 30 million in GMV. Like anybody can do this today.
Okay.
Anybody can optimize. And the important thing especially with respect to, one of our offerings where it's the optimization of Google Merchant Center. Everybody's spending money on Google. So
Right.
like that's the point. It doesn't matter how much money you're spending on Google. Great. If you're spending a lot of money, the gains will be more. But like absolute value gains will be more. But like all said and done, while there are so many other bots coming for your content on your product detail page, Google is still one of the largest spend of all of these brands and retailers, irrespective of size. And so, for us, that's important that wherever the world is going, right now, you've got to optimize Google. And if it's something else in the future, you're ready for that and
Yeah.
make sure that you have AI generated content that is optimized.
And minimally too, you got to optimize for your organic traffic, right? I mean, you want to convert your organic traffic too, right? Because those are the people that want to buy from you the most. You don't want to let them, go out the door as well, in addition to the Google, right? Purva?
Absolutely. Like this is where the product detail page comes in because your organic traffic, like all the way from SEO to now GEO, is all happening from content on your product detail page. Organic traffic, Chris, the most important word in that whole sentence is relevance.
Yeah.
Like if it's not relevant, you are not getting the organic traffic. And the headline here is for so many years, lots of agencies, players have been doing a lot of technical SEO to make a lot of things right for that organic traffic to come, which is all great. But product content wise, on a per SKU basis, that optimization has just been not done because it was not available. This was very difficult to do over the years, but now
Yep.
it's available. So on
Yeah.
every single product detail page, you can have relevant content related to that product at scale for your entire catalog and get all of that organic traffic, in a whole different manner, relevant because of the relevant content.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the last thing any e-commerce merchant wants to do is have a product available on their site that someone can't find because they don't have
Correct.
this data set up in the right way, right?
Yeah,
And that
so
happens all the time.
absolutely. We have this new way of describing this: be found, be sold. And so,
Okay.
like, if you're not getting found, you're like, forget about the second part. And so the whole thing is be
Interesting.
found, be sold.
And you guys measure that? Like, do you measure that with your clients too? Interesting. Like, how does that work?
Absolutely. Lilly is a performance first company. We're one of the very few AI solutions that is getting into a brand because we have already proven value and they have the option to walk away if they do not see value. So every single customer that you will see on our website or whatever else that we talk about, all of these largest brands have experienced value. That's why they are working with us from the get-go. And so, and especially in this space, like performance is absolutely paramount. And so, in the case of like as we're talking about sort of the like overall, performance metrics here, if you're talking about the PDP visits, the conversion or the incremental revenue, we're talking about like massive meaningful lifts. So in the case of, PDP visits, like 2 to 8% lifts in that. In terms of conversion, we're talking about 3 to 25%. These are not made up numbers, real numbers
No.
from these largest brands and retailers, and incremental revenue 2 to 24%. And again, the larger the brand is, when I see these numbers, I'm like, just blows away my mind of saying,
Yeah.
wow, this
Yeah.
like tremendous opportunity where we are going up to we're basically part of their board narrative saying what are the top three AI solutions, and we are part of that saying Lily got us 24% lift in revenue from what we're spending on Google. That's just
Yeah.
music to any founder's ears.
Yeah, it's a definition of working smarter and not harder. And it's also why when Ann told me we got you for this webinar, I was pretty excited because, you know, we've been following you guys since, like you said, since you were an OG. So it's really cool to have you. And it is the definition of that 100%. So, all right, I've been dying to ask you this next question. So there's an entire track at Shoptalk dedicated to the changes in how people are going to search for products online. So with you kind of an expert in that space, what do you predict is going to happen in the field of product content and search and discovery here over the next, say, 3, 5, 10 years?
Absolutely. So number one, long tail searches will be the norm, right? Like I didn't even have to say this. Like you already know this. This is just stating the obvious. Long tail searches, because our consumer behavior has changed. Like and just imagine how fast that has happened over the last 2 years. If I just use November 2022 when ChatGPT came around as like just as a point in time, look at how quickly that has changed. That 1 in 3 shopper online today has already experienced a search with an LLM, like just a generative search. And so the number one, long tail searches will be the norm. That is just going to be how it is going to be in the future. So that's number one. Number two, like I was saying, that consumer behavior has just changed. And so there's going to be a lot of focus on GEO and AEO in the future because consumers want answers.
Purva, define AEO and GEO for some of our listeners who might not be familiar with those terms.
Absolutely. AEO is answer engine optimization, and GEO is generative engine optimization, and they want pretty good relevant answers. And so it's just going to be so much more important that brands and just overall commerce pays heed to that. Relevance is not going to lose its meaning. Like it's just going to be so much more important that you cannot have non-relevant content and pay through it anymore. You have got to have relevant content. Otherwise, you're going to miss out.
All right, we're going to wrap up with our final question. What is your favorite thing about Shoptalk, Purva?
So many things, but top of my mind is as a founder, just meeting lots and lots of customers. And Shoptalk has really good audience in terms of for a player like us. And so just meeting lots of customers. When I say lots, meaning literally, I think it's the largest amount of meetings that we do at a retail conference. And so it's a really good conference that gets really good audience. And so my favorite thing is to just for nonstop 3 days with my sort of running shoes on, just run and just meet customers and just do a lot of those meetings and still not feel as exhausted because it's so energizing to meet execs and understand what do they care about and what are the problems that are top of mind for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, you gotta have good shoes, Purva. That's a really good point for this conference. You gotta have good shoes. All right. Well, so if people want to get in touch with you, either watching this now or they're going to be at the show, you mentioned you have a lot of meetings, generally speaking, at Shoptalk. What's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. We have a booth. So our booth is number 1914. That's easy to remember. I'm sure that date has relevance, which I can't think of right now. But anyway, 1914 is where we are at, that you can find us. And also, I will be speaking and with alongside one of our amazing customers and sharing their story of what they were doing and looking for and their AI journey. So there's lots of ways to meet us, and I'm excited to meet folks at Shoptalk.
Wonderful. Well, hey, yeah. I mean, if you're not on the content train already, that's what I'm taking from this conversation. And if you're not on the content train already, with all the changes that are coming with generative AI, it's just going to become even that much more important. So thank you so much, Purva, for joining us today.
Likewise, it was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for having me.
Joining us next is Syrup's co-founder and CEO, James Theuerkauf. James, welcome to the show. It's exciting to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you share with our audience, for maybe those that didn't listen to our first podcast with you, tell us a little bit about what Syrup does and also why you founded the company.
Totally. To think of Syrup as being an AI decision support system or an AI brain that gives you as a brand, retailer, manufacturer recommendations on how to optimally make your inventory decisions. So for brands like an Abercrombie & Fitch or a Deckers or Furity, we're helping them forecast their inventory, forecast their demand, and then take the next best possible action. So how do you optimally allocate inventory, replenish inventory, buy the right product? And yeah, we're doing that for a couple dozen brands and retailers. And I founded the company in the summer of 2020 after having consulted, a couple dozen brands and retailers and seeing these inventory processes, right? And really seeing how a lot of this decision making is just based on past performance and on averages and averages of averages and the averages of averages of averages. And I have this deep-rooted belief that we as humans, we should be doing the things that are not yet repeatable, right? Let the machines do the work that is repeatable. We humans just focus on the not yet repeatable. And there just seems to be this huge opportunity, leveraging the fact that we have access to more data than we've ever had before, and that we're living through this Cambrian explosion of AI.
Well, and James, this is you've been doing this for a while. You're pretty early on the forefront, but what was it that had to be true for you about founding Syrup to be different than some of the other solutions that were out there? And really, what was it about your experience that you were like, I want to nail this part of visibility and accuracy and being able to do this the right way?
Yeah, a lot of people have tried before you, James, too, I might add. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's the age-old problem in retail, right? How do we get the right product put in the right place at the right time? I think the two things that were true at the moment of founding and continue to be true today are data access, which means both first-party data that lives within our customers' four walls. So, the classic transactions inventory levels, but also, very interesting data points like e-commerce behavior or e-commerce analytics and marketing and promo plans and spend, which are huge indicators of demand, but then also external data, right? Our ability to understand, the internet, right? And whether that's search and social media or events databases or social demographic information, that access to that data is something that we've never had previously. And then second is just this explosion of AI, right? And it's a very different ball game today than it was even 3 or 4 years ago, and even go back 7, 8, 9 years ago. Like what we're able to do today of really sifting through nuances and making sure that we understand how does the stock out of one product, what does that lead to the demand of another, or what does a certain feature of a product that we can identify through images, what does that mean for demand? It's just absolutely mind-blowing what we're able to do today, and it's a real jump, right? And it's a different ball game than it was even just a few years ago.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, and James, do you think so Shoptalk's coming up, you all are going to be out at Shoptalk. Do you think that kind of question from retailers, is it going to be that how do I use AI to properly apply that to my day-to-day operations? Do you think that's going to be kind of the top question that you're going to get asked coming up? Or what topics do you think are going to be really top of mind for the retailers and brands that you're going to be meeting with there?
Yes, and I think so, right? We get asked this a lot around
right?
What does AI really mean? And there's a frustrating amount of noise as well around AI that I think is really confusing and frustrating for brands, retailers, and manufacturers. We at NRF, we heard this one company speaking about, hey, we've been doing machine learning for 30 years, and these machines learn, and imagine how good our models must be. And with all due respect, that's not how the technology works anymore, right? So there's just so much noise and confusion, and so we get asked this a lot of what does the AI actually do? Can you explain to us what does AI actually mean? And I think it's a really, really important question, right? That I would hope that any kind of software player has a good answer to. But then you can also link to actual business outcomes, right, and business results. Like what does the power of the AI actually do to help you with forecasting newness products, right, or handling data sparsity, or accounting for the fact that you have a complex omni-channel network. Like there's real business problems that at the end of the day all bubble up to top line and to bottom line that AI can help you answer. But yes, I think that is the zeitgeist, or the question of the zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist. Nice. All right, James, I want to go a little bit deeper into that because, having been a former executive in this space, being responsible for the inventory, the planning and allocation at multiple companies, I'm curious, and also having seen a lot of executives who think they're pretty smart come into booths and ask the tough questions to prove your mettle. What is one or two of the toughest questions you ever get that proves that you at Syrup know what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think we get questions. I think the really good questions that we get are the ones that make us illustrate how the AI tackles certain business problems. Take data sparsity, for example, right?
Okay.
Like the question is, hey, our average unit sales of a product in a point of sale in a week is 0.1, right? Or 0.2. Like, how on earth do you forecast that, right? And how does your super smart AI help you with that, right? And that makes you actually have to explain the workings of the model, right? And in our case, the way that it works is that because we're not just using transactions, we're using all of these other demand sensors, there's a whole bunch of data that we can use. And then because the modeling is inherently hierarchical, you can go up and down the stack and kind of use that. So you're not just looking at, this beige linen blazer, but you can look at a navy blue linen blazer or a beige pant, and you have all of these kind of demand signals across your assortment, which means a little like a chat GPT does, right? You have this massive blender of information that you can then use kind of for hyper-granular predictions. But I think these kind of questions that come with real business problems, right, and then ask you, how do your models, how does your software actually solve them? Those are the hard ones, and those are the right ones to be asking as well.
So those are the questions you like, the questions where they ask you, say, hey, how do I actually forecast when I'm selling 0.1 unit per store? That's essentially that's your wheelhouse. That's the questions you love to field. That's great. All right. Totally, so yeah. You're gonna be at Shoptalk, and what can retailers and brands expect to see from you there? And if people want to get in touch with you, like what's the best way for them to do that? And also what's on the docket for you all this year? I mean, you had the big write-up about Abercrombie in the Wall Street Journal, if I'm not mistaken. What's next for you?
Yeah, I think there's two big things that we're really excited about this year. One is just these really jaw-dropping advances in the underlying algorithm and the underlying modeling and what that allows us to do, right? We've built this web of neural networks. We call them LDSMs, large demand sensing models, and just the pace of innovation that we're able to do there. It's amazing, Chris, and there's going to be a lot of announcements around that. That's one, and then number two is really the breadth of modules or of use cases that we're applying this AI brain to, right? Like historically it's been very focused on allocations, replenishments, rebuys. We're expanding that set ever further. A lot of work on kind of pre-season forecasting, newness forecasting, the buying process. So there's a lot there that now that we've got this even if I say for myself, pretty sophisticated and very well functioning core brain, the set of use cases that we can apply that to is going to grow really, really quickly. And so yeah, those are the big two things that are on the docket for us this year.
James, I have a question, and I'm not sure if tariffs are impacting you at all, or if they come into play with how people who you meet with, how these retailers and brands are making decisions about even styles or sourcing or all these kinds of things to hit these newness goals that they learn from collecting the data when working with Syrup. But have you seen any impact, or do you anticipate any questions about that when you're meeting with retailers at Shoptalk coming up here?
Totally. I mean, 2025 has been called, I think The Economist was the one that called it a terrifying year.
Terrifying? Oh, that's great. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. So it's definitely top of mind, right? And it's very important for many of our customers as well, with production all around the world. I mean, we work a lot in apparel. The apparel supply chain is one of
Right.
the most globalized in the world. And you know, the way that we work through this with our customers, it's through a configurations logic effectively, right? It's a similar way of saying what's the cost of shipping an item from location A or location B. You're introducing another cost function on location sourcing on location. You know, that you can stack that up versus lead times and versus other costs, and it's kind of this you know, complex multi-echelon optimization. But it's one more reason, right, why like AI is so well suited to help brands and retailers in this incredibly complicated day and age.
Right. It adds so many more factors to take into consideration. Well, James, I'm so excited to see you out at Shoptalk. Before we let you go, we have one non-business related maybe question for you. But James, what is your favorite thing about Shoptalk?
Yeah, Las Vegas. No,
Las Vegas.
I'm joking. Are you?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. I think what I really like about Shoptalk is it just creates this amazing, like, you know, ambience where people from across the spectrum, both kind of software players as well as brand retailers meet, and they can meet in a fairly relaxed setting, right? Which is really nice. I think Shoptalk does an amazing job there of creating that setting of, you know, grabbing a bite to eat or grabbing a drink or like going for an activity. Like those things, they're really fun, and that's probably my second favorite thing after Vegas. Chris and Anne.
I love it. I love that Vegas. You are enthusiastically pro Vegas, and I'm sure that all the people from the Shoptalk team listening are thrilled to hear that, James.
Yeah. Right. All right.
Well, thank you, James, so much for joining us. Before we let you go, once more, where can listeners find you at Shoptalk next week?
Yeah, find us. A bunch of us from our team are there. Find us on the app. You know, come meet us, and I'll be there as well. So, you know, find me on LinkedIn if you like, or shoot me an email and james@syrup.tech. You know, would love to meet up.
Excellent. Well, James, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today. And with that, we'll bring on our next interview.
Hello, and joining us once again for his God knows how many times appearance is one of Omni Talk's favorites and yours too, Placer.AI's SVP of Marketing, Ethan Chernofsky. Ethan, welcome back to Omni Talk. I think you are officially our most interviewed member, or our most interviewed person that we've ever had on the show.
I'm the Steve Martin of Omni Talk.
That's right.
Not,
That's a
not quite
great
Alec
reference.
Baldwin yet. You need to be on a few more times, but then you'll be the Alec. You'll be the most attended, most popped in, most cameoed guest that we have on our show, Ethan.
I want to show up one time as an interviewer and just like randomly appear, ask a question, and then leave.
Yes.
Like that's my dream.
How much time do you have today, Ethan?
Right. We might have a job for you.
We're interviewing a lot of people. All right, well, let's get to it. What is, you know, many people watching probably know of you or have heard of Placer, but for those maybe that haven't, what is it that Placer does? What's unique about it? And what is it about the data that you provide?
Yeah, so Placer is a location analytics platform, and we show visits to retail locations across the country. We use machine learning and AI on top of a panel of tens of millions of devices to show that. And the cool thing about that data source is think about it like crude oil, right? It can be plastic and it can be gasoline, like that. Once you have that single perspective, there's so many things you can do with it. So there's these core elements that we can bring to the table, both having this accurate, reliable understanding of visit trends, but also true trade areas. And because we can understand a true trade area, we can understand the psychographics or demographics of a specific location. And because we can see these traffic patterns, we can look at things like co-tenancy, cross-visitation, and a whole lot more. And so all the ways that you can kind of nuance that data set are things we bring to the table. I think the things that make it unique and special, I think there's actually kind of 4 core elements. So the first is it's reliable. It's stuff that you can use. Hundreds and hundreds of retailers are using it today. Hundreds of players within the commercial real estate space, customer goods companies, and the like. And so I think that reliability is critical. But then the second piece of that, it's this single lens, right? So there's a lot of data sources that are, let's be honest, are better if I want to understand what's happening in my own 4 walls. So I know more if imagine I'm the CEO of Target, which I'm not, surprise. I know more about what's being sold in my stores than Placer would, right? But it's really difficult for me to compare that because I have great data about myself, but I don't have about others. So having a single lens allows me to have this real effective ability to benchmark and have context to what's going on. So I see visit declines in my location, but everyone else is seeing visit declines. So there's just something going on that week. I see visit increases. Is my competitor also? Am I seeing something special? What's going on? That kind of single lens is critical. And the cool thing about that single lens is then it can be cross-functional. So your real estate team, your marketing team, your strategy and operations team, merchandising team can all be using a single data set to understand the world, both how I'm performing, but also how I'm performing in context. And then that last bit is it's accessible, right? One of the key things we've always focused on was making it a product that people can actually use and go quickly from question to answer to potential solution. And I think that's when we take a lot of pride in having a product that, you can have that eureka moment. You go to Shoptalk, you're having this amazing conversation. It creates this creative kind of ping. You can open up your laptop, sign in, and within literally seconds, start exploring the answer to that question, understanding why it might be or what it might mean for your business.
Ethan, I love and appreciate that explanation because I've never heard you take that approach to it. And it's very insightful. We love the data that you collect because that single lens gives us a lot of content to work from. And recently we had you on our retailers to watch segment back in January. We're 3 months in and Shop Talk's next week. Ethan, I got to know, who do you want to hear from at Shop Talk? Who are you excited about?
So there's a couple, actually what was great about this is it made me really peruse the agenda. And
okay.
There's some things I'm really excited about. And so I'm taking a few as touchstones for the more interesting idea that they're discussing. So really excited to hear Wayfair. I think, the future, they're in this really interesting position to truly break down what the future of omni or harmonized retail is because of this. Hey, we were digital and now we have physical. What's that balance? I think a lot of conversations going on now about digitally natives and what their footprint should look like, what they should be doing in both channels and using those to their full effect. Super excited about that. There's a soul cycle section around brand narrative and especially brand narrative within locations. And I'm really excited about that because I think physical spaces for storytelling is super interesting. Something that I think a lot of people are starting to think about more as we talk about the widening of the store and what its purpose is. So how do I create these kind of lasting impressions and interactions? And I think that's really exciting. Fabletics is having this conversation about staying ahead of the customer. Super. I think one of the biggest things we've been talking about in the last few months has been how rapidly the customer is changing and how different they look now than they did maybe 5 to 10 years ago. And so this kind of listening to how retailers are trying to grapple with that problem. And then last bit is there's that whole lane of experience and storytelling. And I think that combo to me is that's candy. I mean, I could do that all day. So those are the thematically with a few direct examples, the ones I'm really excited for.
Wow. I didn't have Soul Cycle on my Shop Talk bingo card. That's a good drop from Ethan. Of course I had Wayfair because you're moderating that discussion.
I know.
But yes, I definitely had that one. But Soul Cycle, that's interesting. I'll have to check that out, see if I can make it. All right, Ethan. So one question we want to ask you is, I mean, you guys, like you said, you're pretty ubiquitous at this point. A lot of people in retail know you. A lot of people in retail use you. What are you when people stop by your booth? What are you focused on in really making sure that they, walk away with or understand?
I mean, my favorite thing about Shop Talk is that it's a stop by in this cool conversation. It does feel more so than almost any other event we attend.
Yeah.
People are discussing ideas there, whether it's the sessions, whether it's the person you're sitting next to, waiting online, walking through the exhibition hall, taking the one-on-ones, you're having these really interesting conversations. And so for some folks, it's hey, what are you seeing about how the consumer is changing? What does that mean? There's this conversation about, convenience versus experience that we're having a lot now with retailers, and we're excited to continue having, and face-to-face is so exciting. I think we're also excited. Some of obviously, especially when it's customers or prospects, a lot of the conversation is around so when is sales forecasting coming? And when is the new markets feature coming out? And what might that look like? What problems could I solve? So there's this, I think the cool thing about, it sounds so cliche at this stage, but bear with me. The pandemic taught us how fun it is to be with people in person. And I think like at Placer, like because we're a data platform and it's like you just dive in and look, going through those eureka moments together with kind of your customers and your prospects and your colleagues and your partners, it's pretty awesome because you just get to go on this fun collaborative journey together.
Yeah. Ethan, I'm curious too, like, not to get buzzwordy, but I'm going to, like, are you also hearing people like ask you about Gen AI too? Like, how is the platform adapting and changing to incorporate that? That's something that Anna and I've never talked to you about. I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very strong opinion about AI, and first of all, it's already been happening for a long time. So many of the cybersecurity solutions, many of the data solutions that you've been using for years have been powered by AI. We're one of those examples. And so this idea of like its newness, it's kind of
it's in your name.
Yeah, I mean, like it's been happening, right? So
it's been there for a while too. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
But I think the thing that really matters for me is like I want us to take a collective deep breath as like every industry, but certainly retail. And I don't want to listen to another session about like how AI is changing retail, because I think we have there's like a phrase that basically we're asking, which is like, where our focus is slightly tilted. AI is an amazing technology, but technology is a means to an end. The question needs to start with what are the problems we're facing? So we have a personalization problem. Can AI play a role in fixing that? We have a problem in keeping our stores clean. Can AI play a role? Probably not. We have a problem in making our website more engaging. Can Gen AI play a role? Absolutely, yes. So I think I would just love to see the conversation start with the problem and then ask, is AI part of that specific solution, as opposed to saying, ooh, AI, how can we jam that into every conversation? I think so many of the technological misses that we've had are because we overemphasize the technology, we underemphasize the problem we're trying to solve.
Well, Ethan, if we think about some of those questions, I'm curious what some of the bigger ones are that the retailers that are coming to you are asking, like whether that's AI related or not. Like, what are some of the problems that you're hearing from retailers that they're trying to solve that are being prioritized right now over maybe some of those others?
I think when retailers are, again, this is the joy of face-to-face, when people are being really honest, they're talking about the fact that they're struggling to have a really good finger on the pulse of how the customer is changing. They know their customer is different. They know their customer is shifting. They don't really know what's happening. And they are trying to get ahead of that, which is awesome. I think there's certain spaces where, take retail media, which is, I know we all have talked about ad nauseum, but like retail media has this like, is at this kind of like Frostian road diverged in the wood, and it needs to decide if it's going to fix its problem or it's going to continue being like all smoke and very little fire.
Also not on my bingo card. Robert Frost references, not on my bingo card. Jesus.
But I think it's like, I think people are grappling with that a lot of like, hey, what's the real problem? Is it actually promise, or is it kind of just another one of is it going to go on like the heap of technologies that never lived up to the hype? I think a lot of the role of the physical space is dominating conversations. Like, how do we grapple with the fact that our store is now also a fulfillment center? Should we be leaning more into BOPUS? Did BOPUS really work? Did it fade back? Like all of these, we're grappling with kind of what is an actionable real insight and what is buzz and myth. And I think there's the cool thing about data is it tends to be less concerned with the hype cycle. And so it gives not the only perspective, not a 360, but a perspective that at the very least is objective. And it's so, I think the interesting thing is so many retailers are asking very different questions of like, give you one example that I loved. We had one ask us, how different does the audience look between two locations? And they had this hypothesis of like, we think it's fundamental. This is our guess of who it is. And they were kind of using the data to check that guess based on their what products were moving and how that was impacting merchandising strategy. So we love that because that's already like a layer or two beneath kind of the surface. And that's where things get really exciting.
Yeah. And data helps you cut through the hype, for sure. All right. So So let's close it up. We've been asking everybody this. I know how big of a fan you are of Vegas, but what is your favorite thing about Shoptalk?
So my favorite thing about Vegas is the flight home. But my favorite thing about
Ethan, I love the
you know,
honesty.
yeah, take me any place where the big attraction is a facsimile of something that exists somewhere else in the world is the original. That's
Being on a plane
exciting.
for 14 hours, that's your favorite thing.
Yeah.
To see a fake fountain that actually exists in Rome, right? Sorry, this is going to become therapy, not a conversation. I like my favorite part of Shop Talk, without question, is I think uniquely that event creates an on-point conversation about things that people are actually discussing. And so the sessions feel more like real, like it's less polished. It's actually asking things about the real problems, and it's not just kind of a billboard. We're an amazing retailer and we are so innovative. It's going those levels deeper, which I love. And I think that filters out into the entire setting of the conference. So the conversations you have in the exhibit hall, the conversations you're having, whether you're getting having a drink at the end of the day, or you're waiting for lunch or getting a coffee, it tends to go deeper, faster. And so I love that one-on-one interaction. The number of kind of like eye-opening conversations I've had within the Shop Talk walls certainly surpasses most of the other experiences I have. And so that's always my favorite part, is just to be able to really kind of leave the noise aside and actually have direct conversations about the issues we're all interested in.
That's amazing. Great answer, Ethan. Great comeback from a very downer approach to flying home from the conference with giving us all the real purpose of why you make that trip in the first place.
I feel like my new goal is to get Shop Talk 2020. 2026 might be too early, but Shop Talk 2027, I heard a rumor it's going to be in Miami. And then we see if we can spread that out and like force their hand. Apologies in advance, Hive Group.
No, get the zeitgeist, quote unquote, moving towards Miami. Get the emotion.
Beaches, hot weather.
I'm 100% in favor of that move. Well, Ethan, let's talk about where people can see you quickly. If they're out in Vegas, they're at Shop Talk this year. What's the best way for them to connect with you, to find out more about the data that you and the team at Placer are able to give them?
So we are at booth 866. Come hang out with us. Come see us. Come have a conversation. We're doing a session at 10:15 on Tuesday. Come check that out, where we talk about tech trends. So come join us there, and just stop by, say hello, ask me if I want to grab a coffee, because I'm probably going to be exhausted, and I'll say yes. Let's do that.
Just bring you coffee, and you move to the front of Ethan's line, because he always has a line.
Someone brings me coffee, they'll be my best friend forever. Is that an exciting thing?
That's exciting.
And noted as well. All right. Well, thank you, Ethan.
Thanks, guys.
Ethan.
It's always a pleasure.
Joining us next is Treasure Data's Chief Marketing Officer, Mark Tack. Mark, welcome to the show. Let's start with a little bit of background on what Treasure Data does and your role at the company. What all do you oversee?
Absolutely. So Treasure Data is an intelligent data platform. So a lot of people would know of Treasure Data as a CDP, customer data platform. Treasure Data is one of the pioneers of the CDP industry. A lot of people don't know this, but Treasure Data was originally founded as a big data platform. So before Snowflake and Databricks and all these companies even existed, Treasure Data was managing massive data as a big data platform well before kind of the current wave of data warehouses came along. And then after about 4 or 5 years, Treasure Data said, like, we should get on the CDP bandwagon. But that foundational big data platform is one of our secret sauce elements. And we really think that the whole market has evolved and has really expanded beyond just managing customer data. But it was a big year for the industry, and it was a big year for Treasure Data. However, AI came along and intelligence came along. And in a matter of a couple quarters, things changed really quickly. And so all of the foundational capabilities, the work we do with our customers to manage customer data, none of that has changed. It's just the next big wave is around intelligence. And we can certainly unpack that. But to us, intelligence is more than just Gen AI. It's Gen AI plus your customer data, plus machine learning, plus personalization, plus decisioning, all to deliver incredible experiences that help businesses grow and achieve incredible profitability.
So basically what I take away from you is like, you got to, the whole enchilada's at play here. And that's the value of the CDP, so to speak. And I got to think too, Mark, like the CDP, I'm sorry, the move towards AI has got to be good for you guys in general in terms of like CDP and growth for the industry. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, the AI models out there, like Open.AI and all these others, are great for public data. But what about your customer data, right? What if you want to leverage Gen AI to run your business based on your data? And Treasure Data manages all that first party data for the world's largest companies. So, we really see ourselves now as the foundation for AI. And a lot of our largest customers are working with us in that manner. Like Anheuser-Busch is a customer. There's a case study on our website where Anheuser-Busch ABI talks about 90 million customer records in their Treasure Data CDP, 2,000 data sources unified in their CDP, and they're using it globally across 42 countries. So that case study is on our website. So, that's a pretty good illustration of scale.
Yeah.
The AI movement has been huge for the business. And I think most leaders now are recognizing the importance of having customer data that's feeding into AI. So you can drive more relevance and more impact for your business versus just using generic, open, public inputs and learning into the models.
Everyone always says you have to have a great CDP. So, why is that such an imperative? And what is it about Treasure Data that sets you apart in that arena particularly?
There's three key elements that we see as foundational for the intelligent data platform to really be meaningful for the business. One is you have to have the right data. And what we see in our customer base is it has to be real-time and batch data.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of customer data platforms that do one or the other, but there's very few that do both. And in a retail scenario where you're trying to align offline sales with online sales, and hey, this customer just bought jeans yesterday, but they're on our website today looking for a shirt, you need to have batch and real-time data together to drive experiences that really move the needle. And that's something Treasure Data does really, really well. We talked about AI, like intelligent data platform means that you have the AI agent framework, you have the Gen AI, you have the machine learning, you have the predictability, and Treasure Data is really out in front of that, doing some really cool things with some of these retailers. And then the last piece that I'll say around like, how do you define an intelligent data platform? It's really the decisioning layer, right? And that decisioning layer is core to intelligence. In Gartner's Magic Quadrant Critical Capabilities report last year, Gartner named Treasure Data #1 in personalization and decisioning compared to all 17 vendors. So, that just says that you're really going beyond data management and you're really driving intelligence. So those three things, I think when you think about like, hey, this term intelligent data platform, what is this? Is this just a fancy way of talking about a CDP? We actually think it's not. We actually think that the CDP sits on top of the intelligence data platform. So yes, Treasure Data is still a leading CDP, but we also see this new frontier, which is something bigger.
Where are retailers and brands when they come to you and they're saying, I'm having some problems? What are those things that you would call out for the audience?
Just think about it as the bookend problems. There's something at the very beginning and kind of near the end of a CDP implementation where a lot of retailers can get tripped up. So at the very beginning, before you implement the CDP, it's about getting really dialed in with your use cases in your business strategy. A lot of companies fast track that. Some don't do it. And they say, hey, we bought a CDP. We're going to pay our SI a lot of money to go implement a CDP. We're going to work with a CDP vendor to get all our data engineered and plumbed in the right way. And then they got this beautiful Ferrari. They got this amazing CDP. And then like, well, what are we going to do with it? Where are we going to drive? And unfortunately, we see a lot of Ferraris that just get stuck in the garage. It's kind of like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You don't want that to happen, right? You want to have a very clear path of what you're going to do with the CDP, how you're going to drive value, and what those use cases are going to be. It sounds silly, and it sounds like something you would assume everybody does. Some don't do it, and some pay the price for that. So that would be one, and that's bookend, like that's at the very beginning, and then at the end, it's all about change management, right?
Okay.
So great, we've got this Ferrari; it's ready to rock and roll. Now, who in the business is actually going to use this thing, right? How are we going to change human beings' behavior? How are we going to drive adoption, right? You typically have a like a MarTech unit or IT or someone in the marketing team that's super, kind of technology and data focused. Those are typically the people that drive these initiatives, but they're really doing it for marketing and for the business to use it, right? So the team that's hired to kind of evaluate a CDP, build it, implement it, they always typically do a great job. And then they get really frustrated when they have a hard time driving adoption, right? How do we get the marketing team to actually embrace this? How do we get the sales team to use it? How do we get supply chain to use it? We have some customers that are trying to get HR to actually lean in on their customer data, and really with AI. So for us, we have
why not?
We have a ChatGPT like chat layer that sits across the whole CDP. So in theory, anybody can access and use the CDP now, right? From the CEO down to an intern. Anybody who can use ChatGPT can now use the CDP. So the whole like excuse of it's too hard, I'm not a data scientist, I'm not an engineer, I don't know how to use this, those excuses are gone.
I love that bookend analogy, Mark. That's a really great way to think about it. It's great just for business in general, but particularly for a CDP implementation. It's a really good way to think about it. You got to get it right going in and you got to get it right coming out. Those are probably the two most important parts. All right, well, let's get you out of here on this. We've been asking everybody, what is your favorite thing personally about Shoptalk?
It's in retail, I feel like the more things change, the more they stay the same. The key themes that we had in a retail advisory board like 15 years ago, those are the same things. But what changes, of course, is the how and the why and the how do we measure it, right? So we're trying to solve these kind of age-old, I don't want to say problems, they're opportunities, but we're doing it in a fundamentally different way. And I think that that's really exciting because it's more of a how do we move from good to great? It's not a starting from ground zero. It's we know what we need to do in retail, but we have new tools and new methods that are going to allow us to approach it in a completely different way. And as someone who, does creativity for a living, I think that this whole retail landscape is just, it's like one big piece of art. It's like, let's rip it down. Let's rethink it. Let's start and let's just repaint this thing with new tools, with AI, with intelligent data platforms. And I think that's what we're going to see at Shoptalk.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, it reminds me, Anne, of the conversation we had with an investor recently where she's like, we asked her about how is the store of the future going to unfold. She said, well, basically you got to drive more sales or cut costs. That's what the store of the future's got to look like, right? That's all we're talking about here fundamentally. I love how they put it in black and white terms. And Mark, you got me thinking of that too. So that's great.
No doubt. Awesome.
Well, Mark, where can people find you if they want to meet with Treasure Data, they want to stop by the booth? What are the best places for them to do that next week at Shoptalk?
So our booth number, it's a long one. It's like a credit card number here. There must be
Get
a
your
lot
pens
of
and paper ready.
There must be a lot of
booths.
Talk, right? It's 1412A. Again, our booth number is 1412A. And we also have 22 one-on-one hosted meetings that have been scheduled. And if you're on our schedule, great. I'll be there. Look forward to meeting folks. If you don't have a one-on-one meeting with us and you'd like to meet, obviously we would love to make that happen. And then we have a cocktail reception we're doing on Wednesday night at the Skyfall Rooftop Lounge from 5
That's a classy spot, Mark. That's a classy
Sweet.
spot.
That's what we like to do. I like to be up in the sky here.
Get the ticket for that, folks. Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
God.
nice spot.
Reach out on LinkedIn. It's the more the merrier. My marketing team may not be happy at me for saying that, but I think it's the more the merrier. So stop by. We would love to see everyone and can't wait to meet up in Vegas.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Joining us now is Mirakl's GM and CRO, Alex Hase. Alex, welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, Alex, let's start out by just giving our audience a little bit of background on you and Mirakl, if you don't mind.
I have a prior history with a whole bunch of different software companies that have been focused in retail and the CPG space. So been enjoying my stay with Mirakl, learned a lot, and the company's been going through a lot of changes as of late.
And tell us a little bit about what Mirakl does for those who might be meeting you for the first time.
So Mirakl has historically been focused in what's called marketplace segment, which essentially is any e-commerce retailer that it wants to allow third-party sellers to sell on their site to complement what they're currently selling. We essentially have software that enables that. So everyone's familiar with Amazon. That is purely a marketplace. This is for other retailers to be able to apply a similar business model.
Excellent.
So, Alex, I want to start out by giving you a little bit of kudos because Mirakl, you all have been in the news quite a lot recently, like Best Buy and Janie and Jack come to mind for me. So many new companies appear to be looking to, particularly Mirakl, to stand up marketplace platforms. Why is that? Why are we seeing so many companies dip their toe into these waters?
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, not only has there been a lot of press, just wait until what you hear over the next 6 to 8 months, because there's going to be some really big announcements with some other significant retailers that have also decided to pursue this as part of their strategy. And essentially, I think there's been a big shift from general merchandisers, retailers that we've been working with for a while, like a Saks, a Macy's, and we've seen two themes that have really started to unfold that have expanded the portfolio. One of them is around specialty retailers. So whether it's within consumer electronics, so Best Buy is a recent example of that, health and beauty, the DIY ecosystem, footwear, those vertical-oriented retailers have actually found that marketplace is very complementary to their strategy. So we're seeing a lot of expansion there. The second, and again, there was an announcement around a retailer called Janie and Jack. They're kind of a mono brand, right? They're known for their own brands, but they're effectively trying to expand their strategy to service all the needs of their consumer, and they want to do it all in one place. And so they've seen great success right out of the gate.
And so, Alex, but that makes sense, but what's the rationale for them doing it? Is it the expanded assortment? Is it, something else? What is the rationale that they're relying on?
Well, so there's a couple of different dimensions. One of them is that it's capturing the audience, capturing the consumer, part of the overall value proposition. But a part of it is also just expanding the volume or assortment of products, which then more consumers drives more traffic. Obviously, there's a revenue and a growth story associated with that just on, conversion of that commerce. The second part of the equation, though, is around retail media. So what's interesting, and again, this is quoted in a recent Best Buy article, is that the opportunity for retail media goes up dramatically when you have a marketplace. So the two are very complementary to one another. And we've even evolved our strategy from being hyper-focused on marketplace. We did expand that into a dropship solution, but then even beyond that, a retail media platform so that we essentially can help the retailers capture that opportunity.
Yeah. And Alex, let's dive into that a little bit more. Like, what does it look like to first put a marketplace in place? And then how does kind of retail media become support of that? Or like, how do retailers kind of get that funnel up and running?
Yeah. So again, the whole notion of a retail media strategy is taking advantage of the potential, the advertising potential, right? And I always look at it through well, I look at it through three different lenses. One of them is through the lens of the retailer, right? They have this inventory on their sites, it's available, and there is an opportunity to monetize that. And again, we've read all the articles about Amazon and Walmart and others doing it quite effectively. It's essentially applying that same model. The second part of it is the consumer, right? So by running ads that are relevant to them and assuming that they're personalized, the consumer wins because they get exposed to products that they might not otherwise have known existed. And then the third is the brands themselves now have exposure and opportunity to invest in that advertising, therefore being able to expose products that they want for those consumers.
Yeah, so essentially what you're saying, Alex, is that there's the expanded assortment opportunity, there's the traffic that you get to the website, and also the additional revenue that comes as a result of that. But then there's also the retail media play, which I think is important to put a pin in, because one of the big unlocks for me when I was running e-commerce was just how much advertising can scale across your assortment, because the assortment is so large. So you have more items with which to advertise and to drive traffic and revenue from. And so that's an important piece of this whole equation. So it makes sense that you guys are seeing the success that you have. And the other part too, Alex, that I want to touch on real quick is, don't you in and of itself, by being the platform, also make this whole concept easier than it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago? Isn't that partly why Best Buy is trying it again?
That's absolutely right. And again, part of the constituents of this marketplace model are those third-party sellers or the brands that actually are, through this model, selling on that e-commerce site of the retailer. And so what we've done is invested quite significantly, not only in the ability for them to facilitate the process of onboarding products, the catalog onboarding, all of the merchandising that is associated with that, but within the same platform, they can actually make the investments, the retail media investments, so in ads, and they can run their own campaigns. So instead of hopping from system to system to system, you actually in one place can not only deal with your assortment strategy, but in conjunction with that, be doing your retail media as well.
Which I imagine, Alex, is also helping support, what would be the work at a retailer of the equivalent of, I don't know, 4 or 5 teams, a retail media team, a marketplace team, a procurement team. Like, you're kind of taking that all into one department that can run a marketplace.
That's exactly right. Yes.
The other point that I never thought about, Alex, too, which you just made me think about, is the digital landscape and the tools available to startup brands and startup entrepreneurs to take advantage of systems like this didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago either. You think of all the different systems that enable people to stand up websites and start selling product and everything that they can do. So that's a whole unique wrinkle to this that I never thought about. So that's great. All right. If you could leave our watchers or the Shoptalk attendees with one message while you're out there next week, what is it going to be?
From my perspective, it's explore and learn and understand how retail media and marketplace can fit into your strategy. And I'm speaking obviously to retailers, but the reality of it is, and this is what we've experienced over the past 10 years or so, is there's been this progression of learning and understanding. And that's where, my comment about the specialty retailers now understanding where it fits. If you went back 6, 8 years ago, it was just dismissed as, well, we'll never do a marketplace, or retail media, that's for the really big retailers. The reality of it is that's actually not true. And so my advice to people would be learn, explore, dig in, and define what your strategy is, even if your strategy is to not execute or have a strategy, if you will. And I would also advise that there's a lot of companies out there, in particular the strategy consulting firms, that have done a lot of great work with these retailers and can help you really get grounded on a lot of the things that we've spoken about today.
All right, Alex, this has been amazing. We're going to close out with one question for you. What is your favorite thing about being at Shoptalk?
It's not because it's in Las Vegas, I will tell you that. However, I would pick a different location. But I've always really enjoyed, that there's a great energy there, the people that are there. there's obviously a ton to learn. And so if you're listening and participating in the event in its entirety, you actually get exposed and can pick up a lot of interesting tidbits along the way. And then we also love, it's a great opportunity to reconnect with our customers and then, prospects and people that, we're in some capacity already engaged with. So I will leave you with, we do have a booth there, and it's booth 1746, and we would certainly welcome having a conversation with anybody that's interested.
Awesome. I was just going to ask you that, Alex, but I'm curious because we've had a few people that we've interviewed say that they'd love it in a different location. I'm going to put you on the spot again. If you were to have Shoptalk in a different location, where would it be?
Well, I was talking to one of our partners recently, and he was heading off to go skiing in St. Anton. So I think that would be a lovely place for Shoptalk.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know where that is. Yeah. Is that in the Swiss Alps or something? Yes. Okay. Sure. Yes. Yes. And yes.
Got it.
You asked me on the
suggested
spot. I'm reacting because that's what's in my mind right now.
Right.
So I want to go skiing in St. Anton. Yeah.
A stone's throw from Mirakl's Paris headquarters. All right. Well, Alex, thanks for joining us. That was really great. Great. Thanks for giving us the rundown on what marketplaces are and why so many retailers are finding them so interesting and diving into them, quite frankly, too. So we're excited to see you at Shoptalk next week. And of course, travel safe and stay well until then, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Joining us now is Signifyd's co-founder and CEO, Raj Ramanand. Raj, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Let's start off, though. Give our audience a little bit of a refresher on what Signifyd is, and as well as your background, too. We always like to get to know our guests a little bit when we can.
I've been in the payments, retail, and risk space for about 25 odd years. I started my background on the retail side with FedEx Corporation on the logistics elements of it. Learned a little bit of logistics and fraud over there. Then moved to the Bay Area to run emerging markets risk at PayPal. That time, emerging markets back in the day was Latin America, Middle East, and Africa. I don't know if it still stays that way. Learned a lot about payments and fraud at that point in time. And then branched off to start Signifyd back in 2011 with my co-founder, Mike Liberty, who actually ran digital goods risk at PayPal at that time. It was an interesting time. We learned a lot about the space through those different journeys, obviously. But one of the interesting things that was happening at that time, this was back 2011, if you recall, mostly everybody at that time in retail were focused around reducing fraud. And, in the retail space online, when somebody buys something, the merchant always is liable for that. Most people don't know. It's an interesting tidbit of information. But obviously what that meant was because retailers were liable for that fraud, they were putting in these protections in place that effectively blocked the good and the bad. And while reducing that fraud, they ended up actually turning away billions and billions of dollars of good transactions and good people who were trying to buy. So this was, think anywhere from, it could have been a 1% for some of the really large potential retailers, and some of them declining 15, 20% of their top line traffic. And that was where the opportunity came. For Signifyd, we saw this massive opportunity in saying, instead of focusing on using AI to just protect the bad and help retailers reduce their fraud, what if we could turn that around and use AI for good, which is to be able to approve more and more of these good users such that you could drive growth in the top line from 2% to 20%, depending on how much you could approve. And so it was the genesis of that. And that obviously built on a lot of other things we've done after that, which is protecting the entire customer journey in each of these sort of risk elements, not just at the checkout layer.
I think two things from what you just said. One, I find the idea of, finding the hidden dollars in, really understanding fraud inherently interesting. But then two, 25 years in payments, that means you're a glutton for punishment, I think, as well. So what is it that you find? So what is it that you find so exhilarating about the space? I'm curious.
when you think about businesses in general, they're the amalgamation of a lot of decisions people make across many different facets of the business. It could be, I'm going to launch this promotion in retail today, and that's going to drive this elements of my business. I'm going to launch this new product line. I'm going to launch a new geography that's going to come out. I'm going to make tweaks in cost reduction and how I'm going to monetize my existing customers better than just an acquisition of new customers. All of that business decisions that happen in any sort of retailer today ultimately boil down to how you operate the underlying aspects of the business, whether it's logistics, whether it's payments, or whether that's risk. Without the combination of these three, the logistics side of it, the payment side of it, and the risk side of it, all of these decisions can't be executed against.
But I'm curious what you feel like the biggest issues plaguing the retailers and brands that you talk to now are. What are they focused on?
The biggest thing that's happening in this space right now for retail is tied to the concept of returns. I think we all deal with this in some shape or form today, where we buy something and we return it. And for the most part, we're all good people. We're not trying to abuse the system. But returns is now a $890 billion problem globally. And if I'm a retailer where I sell something and then have to figure out how to adjust my books or forecast these returns, you literally are saying that everything I sell, there's an X% of that, depending on the business. In say, fashion, it could be 30% of everything bought online is a return. You as the retailer have to deal with all of that. It comes down to how do you monetize that consumer again when a return happens? And then the second problem that people are trying to deal with is, how do I make sure that the customer experience is really good when they make that return, such that the loyalty or the lifetime value of that customer is sticky enough? And there are lots of risk problems or fraud problems that sort of drive this whole thing. But those are the two real big issues we're seeing in retail around returns right now.
What do you predict are some of the big changes that we'll see retailers try to make to achieve more profitable growth?
Let's take the two examples. We'll take the first one, which is all about when you buy a pair of shoes. Let's say you buy a pair of shoes and it doesn't fit, just for the sake. Now you want to return that pair of shoes. When you return that pair of shoes today, it takes 7 to 20 days for most retailers to put the money back on your credit card.
Right.
Now, it's not that the payment rails don't exist to put that money back on your credit card. The payment rails exist. They could put it back tomorrow if they wanted to put it. But the reason they hold it is because they have to wait for you to send those pair of shoes back. They have to open the box and they have to make sure that the shoes that you bought is the shoes that you returned. You didn't return like a stone in there. And that process to be able to do it takes it from the time you ship it, it needs to go to a warehouse, somebody needs to open it, they have to validate, put it back in a system, and then they put the money to come back on your card. But ultimately, what's happening is it's a trust issue, right? Like, do I believe that you're going to send me that pair of shoes back? But if I could tell you at the point of return that when you initiate that return, even before you ship it, that, hey, you will return that, and I put that money back on your card instantly, what we found is that buyers tend to buy somewhere in the range of 20 to 30% of the time more again with that retailer at that point itself. So you effectively don't go back and reacquire the customer simply because they got that money back instantly. And that's a big deal, right? Because reacquisition cost is pretty expensive. So what's happening in the market, you'll see, is that more and more retailers are going to realize that this concept of instant refunds is going to become the norm for the future. And there are a few great retailers who do that. We work with them and we can get into more of the details of how we do it. But ultimately, if you can give that money back instantly to the customer, then you effectively have that repurchase rate to be higher. So I think that's going to be one thing that people are going to do in the future. And it's going to be over the next 12 to 24 months, a high adoption of that. And so then the second one, which, I talked about this $890 billion problem. Every retailer has returns. It's a natural part of the business. But there's more obvious issues in avoidable returns that can be avoided. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
People do promotions all the time at retailers. These promotions are being done by the marketing teams, and they do things like, hey, if you buy $200 worth of product, we give you 25% off. These promotions from the marketing team are disconnected from the operations teams. So what happens is that I, as the consumer, it's just like, wow, I'm going to get a 25% off. I buy $200 worth of product. I keep the one thing I want from that 200. Say I buy 4 things. I return 3, but I get to keep my discount. So I could have avoided those returns, right? The 3 things that you returned to me, you're a good buyer. You were just trying to avail the discount, but I could have avoided those 3 things because I knew you were trying to avail that discount, but you bought 4 because you got the discount. There's a disconnect between the top of the funnel where marketing is running programs and the operational elements of how people have to deal with the messiness of returns. And if you can connect these things together, you can avoid a lot of returns. And that 890 billion doesn't have to become about penalizing the customer of saying, I'm going to charge you $7 for every return. Then there are lots of good customers who are never going to return and paying $7 versus finding ways to just avoid the return in the first place by doing the right things, connecting the top of the funnel, the front end with the back end.
So Raj, I'm glad we had to do the second one, because the first one I can conceptualize, get my head around in terms of, how you can understand the consumer that's returning the product and whether or not you want to give them an instant refund, by applying technology to help you understand that. The second one's a little bit more complicated to me as a former retail executive. So like, how do you see technology bridging that gap between marketing and operations in actuality? Because it's a hard problem to solve.
I wouldn't discount the fact, and it's a good question. I wouldn't discount the fact that this is a hard problem, and that's why it's not being solved, right? It's
Right.
a very complex thing. I think the way to think about the problem is more about a visibility problem before you can solve the problem.
Okay.
I think solving for the visibility is a pretty powerful thing in our industry right now. Like most people who run returns teams, you go and talk to any retailer, you go into any one of them, they now have returns VPs, just kind of sit there and looking at how do you deal with returns? What do you do to manage costs? And most of them, if you really look at what's happening in the space, are really optimizing their logistics costs.
Right.
They go in and negotiate their price with UPS and FedEx, and that's really what they're doing.
Right.
And they're doing other things. There's a lot more, but that's sort of where their prime focus is I manage a big vendor and contracts, and I'm going to negotiate prices down, and I keep kind of getting my costs down. But ultimately, what they're missing is their mission control, like one place to look and understand what are all the reasons for my returns coming in? How do I look at the different types of the returns? What is causing these returns to come in? How do you connect the dots between buyer habits and what's happening? How do you look at that consumer outside of my network and know, are they typically doing a lot of these types of promotional abuse or loyalty abuse? Do they like to wardrobe? Do they like to bracket? You can understand the holistic that consumer. And if you can understand the different patterns happening, and you say, these are my top 10 reasons for how I can avoid the return from happening, now you start putting solutions in place to be able to reduce it. But I think if I were to zoom out and answer your question, I think the VP of return that's optimizing logistics contracts and doing other things doesn't have their mission control where they can understand how to avoid those returns. And there's lots of pockets for opportunity in this space.
So Raj, is that where you would say then that because of AI being a part of this experience to kind of gather all of those touch points and put that into one dashboard for the VP of returns or whatever executive might be in charge of kind of managing or overseeing this process, is that where AI is really making this experience better for the consumers and better for the business bottom line?
That's exactly right. I mean, one of the most powerful things that's happened in this space over the past 10 years is that the amount or the explosion of consumer data is pretty high, but also it's not just about the transactional elements of the data. It's everything pre-transaction. How long does someone spend on your return policies before they buy your buy your product. Like if someone,
Right.
what we found, if someone has spent a lot of time looking at your return policies before they buy something, they're most likely not going to return. Right?
Interesting.
Like they're most likely not going to return because they've really thought about what this is going to look like and done it, right? There'll be cases people return, but how do you take that data that's happening pre-transaction, even before someone click checkout, and use that in your intelligence to how you tailor the policies for your returns? Could be a very interesting thing that happens. You then have the checkout data, which is everything about what someone's purchasing. And then you have all the post-purchase data that's happening in the world today. You know, how frequently does someone return? Why do they return something? What are the return reasons that come with it? Normalizing those return codes across all of retail is very hard to do, and tying all that together. And so where AI plays a massive part is bringing all that together and building predictive elements to be able to say, with certainty, I think this person is really good. You may think that they're a first-time buyer for yourself. You may think that this person is looking abusive, but they're actually not. They're really good people. And if you follow that journey, almost from the time someone lands on your website all the way down to when they return something, and you've gone through the elements to connect that journey, you effectively now have a very predictive way of saying, this is how I should treat my customer. As opposed to this one size fits all of how you treat them, you use AI to be able to tailor that experience to the end customer.
The way you just described that was really great. I mean, the way I'd summarize it is really like knowledge and data is power to understand, you know, how you want to approach your end consumer at the end of the day and what services and experiences you want to offer them. So, all right. Well, with that said, Shop Talk, we're all getting geared up for it. What is your favorite thing about Shop Talk, or your favorite thing to do while you're out there?
So the biggest thing I enjoy about Shoptalk, and I'm sure most of my peer group does as well, is that it brings together the most elite minds thinking about the future of retail in one place. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. And the energy that comes from that and getting to meet those people and hear about what different businesses and what verticals in retail are doing about the future and being able to tie that together, I think is the most powerful part of that. And obviously just to be able to hang out with your peer group that you've known for a long time. I think you don't get those opportunities in big groups often. And so I typically like that as well.
Nice. So it's not the blackjack table, Raj. It's not the blackjack table.
That he'll admit on this session.
Not the drinks, not the blackjack, none of that. But my co-founder would like the blackjack. He was a professional blackjack player at some point in his life. So
oh my God, professional blackjack player? Wow, I didn't know there was such a thing. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Raj, for taking the time with us today. Before we let you go, what's the best way for people to connect with you next week when they're out at Shop Talk?
That's great. So we do have a strong presence there at Shoptalk from Signifyd. You can find us at booth 1906 on the floor.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks so much, Raj. We'll see you there.
Well, that wraps us up today, and we're thankful to all our guests and to those of you who are able to join us live today and to those listening on their way to Shop Talk. We'll be heading out shortly ourselves, and you can catch our full live coverage of Shop Talk brought to you by Meta and Avalara beginning Tuesday next week and available to you on LinkedIn, our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Omni Talk Retail, or wherever you get your podcast. So until next week, out at Shop Talk, as always, be careful out there.